Thank you. So yeah, this is 5 years and counting. It's all about Pet Rescue Saga. So let's go back to 2012. A few games were released that year. Borderlands 2, Mass Effect 3, this small game no one's ever heard of called Candy Crush. But there's another game that's very important to me, which is Pet Rescue Saga. It was released in 2012, so it's actually 6 years old this October. And it was the third game King released on the App Store. We have over 2,300 levels live now, and a steady user base of about 4 million players. So who am I? My name's Rose Thomas. I'm a level designer at King Malmö in the south of Sweden, seen here. And I work on a team of around 20 people that are responsible with keeping the game fresh and making sure the content is high quality for our players. I also work with 2 other designers named Stuart and Jamie, seen here, in our quest to destroy the ring in Middle-earth. I'm really proud of the beard I grew for this part. So for this talk, I'm going to quickly go over what is Pet Rescue Saga in case you're not familiar with it. Then I'll go over a little bit of the history of the game. And finally, I'll get into talks on level design, because that is what I do, and it makes up a large chunk of content in our game. So we'll talk about some of the level design principles we use, and then also how we keep it fresh with groups and conditions and in-level features. So this is Pet Rescue today. This is what a typical level looks like. Pet Rescue is a clicker puzzle game. So if there are blocks of the same color, 2 or more, you click them, they disappear, etc. And then it refills. We also have a saga map style progression that is pretty typical for King games. And we have 4 game modes: Rescue, Hybrid, Classic, and Score. And the main objective in each of these is either to rescue pets or clear all the blocks from the level. On top of that, we have 11 boosters and 8 blockers. So Pet Rescue through the years. So King actually started in 2003 with a web portal known as Royal Games. So King itself is celebrating a birthday this year with 15 years. Royal Games was a web portal where King hosted a variety of different Flash games. And this is actually where Pet Rescue started. This was Pet Rescue in the early 2000s. Very different than how it is now. At the time, there was only 3 pets, a dog, a puppy, and a bird. The blocks looked very different. And there was actually no levels. So there was no map. You just played a series of 2 levels and tried to get the highest score possible in that short amount of time. And there was only 2 boosters, which was a fire extinguisher and a helicopter that would rescue the pets and airlift them out of the level. And there was 1 blocker, which is a fire block. It would catch blocks on fire, or if it touched a pet, it would make them disappear. So the fire extinguisher would put that out. And you had 2 minutes to get the highest score possible before the round ended, and then you would compare your score to other people around the world. So it was very different than the game we have now. So in 2012, we launched on the App Store, and it looked like this, not the same game at all. And this was the 3rd game released by King after Candy Crush and Pyramid Saga. And at this time, it was still a fairly new market. But this was actually also the first game that my studio created. King Malmö got to do the Pet Rescue Saga. And we launched in 2012 in October and added the saga map, so players could get a sense of progression but keep playing over and over. And we also added more pets. So like I said, there was only 3 in the first one, and we added 10 more, including a hedgehog that you can see there, and pigs. And we added more game modes. We added Rescue, Hybrid, and Classic to this. We kept score mode, but we took away the time constraint that they had in the old version and changed it to moves. So this is what it looked like in 2012, as I mentioned. And we haven't changed it that much art style-wise. This is what it looks like now. So we updated the pets a little bit, and we actually replaced a couple pets. We used to have a fish and a bunny rabbit, and we changed them to a black cat and a dinosaur, because that's a logical pet for people. And we updated the blocks a little bit. but it's about the same these days. Most of the changes come in the form of live ops, features, and levels. So now we'll talk about Pet Rescue today. So King is a very data-driven company. We try and figure out what drives our players and what motivates them and use that to inform our designs and our decisions. And we know on average, King players cite up to 5 different motivations for why they play King games. These can be anything from completion to a sense of adventure, but there's 2 that really stand out and that we really pay attention to in Pet Rescue Saga, and that is to relax and unwind and for entertainment. We know our players probably aren't sitting on the couch for 8 hours on a Saturday playing this game. They're most likely doing short sessions on their commute to work or just before bed, but they just want a quick, bite-sized session. So we try to keep our levels to around 2 to 3 minutes, and because of that, we need to make sure that they have all the info quickly. So we do this through the use of UI and also making sure the objectives are on the board when they start. So within 2 to 5 seconds, a player should be able to identify a handful of moves. Within 2 seconds after that, they should be able to find the most optimal move that will give them the best strategy. And then within the next 2 seconds, they should be able to execute it and have everything refill in. Luckily, with Pet Rescue Saga, we don't have cascading mechanics like you might see in Candy Crush. So it goes pretty quick. This can be slightly different for match 3 games. And we look a lot at the level design flow. So we try to have a sort of hook in the early level. In this level, there are a lot of obstacles, but we also have a lot of these line blasters that kind of create this excitement at the start of the level. By mid-level, it should have opened up a little bit. The players have now figured out the strategy, they know what they're doing. And then if we're going to pinch them, we like it to be at the end, so they feel like they were that close to winning. And so you can see here, they only have 1 pet left to save, but they only have 2 moves, so they're right there. So we work really hard to make sure our levels are at the proper quality. Our players have been playing for many years, and they've been playing for many levels, so we take a long time working on these. King Malma is a sprint-based company, so we spend 2 weeks in each sprint. So a typical sprint for the designers works in 2 ways. In the first week, we each build our levels. So for 3 designers, we build 5 levels each. When we are finished with them and we feel like they're at a good quality, we'll play one another's levels and provide feedback. And then we'll go back and tweak based on that feedback. When we're done with it in the team, we send it to an outside company called Playtest. And they have players that are at about the level that most of our live players are at. And so they will play it. They will give us both attempts data as well as qualitative feedback. And they'll tell us what they find frustrating, what they find fun. And we'll take that info and we'll tweak again. And we'll play it and make sure it's good. And then we send it to them one final time for a pass testing. We try to keep our levels challenging, but we don't want them so hard that our players can never beat it. So we have them try one more time just to make sure it's not impossible. And even after this, we still look at player data and make sure that it's not coming in too hard, that players are able to beat it. But we've been around for 6 years, and we last added a blocker, or any new type of block, over 2 years ago. And it was this flower block here. We released it on level 1,498, and we just went live with level 2,352. So it's been a little time. So what do we do to keep things innovative and work with what we have available to us? So as designers, we work with what are called groups and conditions. So groups, this is kind of a vague description of them, but in our editor, they look like one block. And I'll show you in a later slide. But within that block, we can set up a variety of different items. And when it displays to the player, the code will pick one of those items and display that option. So this is what it might look like inside the block in our editor. You can see there's 8 different items, and we can actually set the probability of them showing to the player. So the meshed blocks have a lower chance, the regular blocks have a higher chance. And we can use this to kind of add some randomness to the board, but select where we put it. So this is an example of the use of groups. This level looks pretty simple on the surface. It's 5 blocks, which adds some complexity, but there's no obstacles except for these little logs you can see here. This level actually has 53 different groups inside of it. The designer who made it used them in such a way that he put conditions inside the groups, which we'll get into, to say always spawn the same ratio of blocks of each color -1. So it would slowly deplete, but it would always have the same ratio of red, yellow, etc. So this is what it looks like in the editor. As you can see, there's the starting layout on the left, and on the right, those are all the groups. They look like a single block, but inside they could have 8, 9, 10 different blocks within them. So to recap, groups are a collection of blockers, boosters, blocks, etc. They're good for adding randomness to the board. The probability of what shows can be weighted by the designer. And there's something else. So now we'll talk about conditions. A condition is an element within the group that dictates what needs to happen for that group to spawn. So we do have refill mechanics, so we can decide when and what spawns. And this is what it looks like in our editor. Some of the options are moves left, pets left to save, among columns, and these just mean if they have less than 10 moves left, spawn this item. Only spawn it in column 2, etc. And this is an example of a condition. The group here is called the lock, so the only item in this group is a lock. We've set it to where it's set to respawn, and it's got a lower probability than some other items. But there is 4 conditions. And what these say is the lock will only spawn in column 2. It will only spawn if there are 0 pets on the board. It will only spawn if there are 0 locks on the board. And it will only spawn if there are 0 glass boxes on the board. So it's very controlled when and what spawns. And this is what it looks like in the level. You can see it there in column 2 underneath the panda. And there are a lot of conditions in this level, actually. There's 2 on the red and blue blocks. There are 2 on that line blaster on the bottom there. There are 4 on the lock that I just went over. And there are 2 on the pet. So we can use these to kind of create a strategy. And the player can figure out exactly what they need to do to get what they need in the level to spawn. So with this one, with all those conditions, the lock needs to be removed with a key booster before it'll spawn again. So they'll learn how to kind of figure out the strategy. And again, this is an element within the group that dictates what spawns and when. So now finally, I'm going to talk about in-level features now that we've gotten into the nitty-gritty. So we really, again, work to figure out what motivates our players, and we do this by trying out new things. We experiment. One of those experiments was called buff buddies. Now we have pets in a lot of our levels, so we thought, can we see if we can use these pets to create moments of opportunity in the level? We don't have boosters that craft on the board like some other games, so we had to figure out something else we could use. The way buff buddies works is they appear randomly in the level, and there are 3 buddies. There's the bronze puppy, the silver cat, and the gold panda. And each one gives the player a different buff. The bronze puppy gives a score multiplier, the silver cat increases the recharge rate of the booster, and the gold panda gives a bomb that clears the entire level, known as the buff buddy bomb. But you had to collect them sequentially. So you had to get the bronze puppy before the silver cat would spawn, etc., etc. And there was also a time limit. So if you didn't collect them in time, the meter would reset. You'd have to go back to the beginning. So we originally only opened this up to a certain percentage of players just to see how they would respond. And it had such an effect on not only daily active users, but also gross bookings on both our early players and our end of content players, that we realized we had a very important feature on our hands. And this actually became a live feature. We eventually released it to 100% of players about a year ago. So it's now a live feature in the game. So again, King is constantly reiterating on our games, reiterating on our levels. We're always trying to work to make sure the content is as great as it could be, and improving the artwork, as you saw from that game from the early 2000s. We're really always working to try and make our games better and better. And now that I've told you all the secrets, now's the time I tell you we are hiring, so you can all apply to be level designers now that you know how to do my job. And that's everything for me, so thank you.
Thank you very much. So now it's time for questions. Anyone has any questions? If you have, please come to the micro over there and ask it into the micro.
Hi, thank you very much for a very interesting speech. I would like to ask you, have you ever thought about make Candy Crush Friends 3D? Because it's a good idea.
I have not. I'm not on that team, but I can relay it to them and see what they think.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions? Okay, please.
Hello. When you introduced the buff buddies, did the entire game get easier, or did you rebalance everything around it?
It did get easier on some levels. We don't have pets in all of them, but we decided against rebalancing just because we'd have to go back through so many levels.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Other questions? We actually have like 10 minutes more, so you can tell us about anything else if you want. If not, I can ask another question. You told us about the sprints, the steps that you follow. So it's like 3 designers make 5 levels, like 15 levels. And how many of them reach the players?
All of them. So we release all 15 every 2 weeks.
Oh, so it's not like you choose the best ones, or it's always 15?
Yep, always 15.
Well, yeah, that's interesting. So any other questions? Yeah, we can talk a lot. It's like 10 minutes, a lot more. So, okay. Yeah, of course, but you have to go all the way to ask it to the micro. I'm sorry. That's how things work here. Deal with it.
Hello.
Hi.
Do you have some extra activities for level designers? Like you suggest them to like play some certain games, watch certain movies, or something like that? Books.
Yeah. So we actually play a lot of different games. We play a lot of mobile games just to keep an idea of what's going on in the market and what's popular. But also we play different games. So like this month, the designers in my studio have been playing social games. So we play Overcooked, and we've played Mario Kart, and we're just kind of always trying to keep up to date on what games are out there.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm sorry, so it's like we have to finish. It's 16:30. Could you please tell us about how you're hiring? So it's like there we can apply for a job. So maybe you can tell us about when you see a CV from a junior game designer, what points are important for your company and what is actually thrilling, and when you think that you will not gonna hire this person, and what tells you that this is the exact person what we need?
Wow. So we look a lot at passion for games, but also passion for mobile games and passion for King games. So if you play King games, that's a huge, huge bonus, because we probably will ask about it. But also just being up to date on the market and knowing the difference between casual and hardcore games really helps a lot. So, yeah.
So it's just playing games.
Well, skills help too.
Okay, which skills? So, which skills should I put in a resume to become a game designer in King?
A game designer. We're doing a big push right now on systems and economy, so that's really helpful. And then, yeah, knowing a little bit of logic, knowing creative skills. I'm trying to think. All sorts of things.
Okay, so it's like mathematics and creativity.
creativity, mathematics, balancing. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I don't know, maybe you can tell us about plans for the future for the Pet Rescue Saga. So are you planning to continue it for the next 5 years, or?
For the next 5 years. We do. I can only talk about so much. But we do have plans. We have some big plans. So I don't know if any of us thought it would get this far, but now we're really kind of investing and working towards growing the franchise. So, yeah.
Okay, anyone else? Does anyone else have a question? If you have, so come there. Okay, so I can ask another question. There is, I forgot about Angry Birds. Yeah, they made a cartoon, so maybe you have also the plans for making cartoons or TV series for Netflix. I don't know.
Not that I know of right now.
Okay, so nothing like that. Okay, guys, do you have any other questions? Yeah, okay, please come here. We have a lot of time to torture her with questions. Yep.
Многие знают, что дизайнеры Playrix играют в игры King. Играют ли дизайнеры King в игры Playrix?
Okay.
Что она думает в целом про Playrix?
Okay, so here's the question. We all know that game designers from Playrix, they play a lot of King games. So the question is, do King level designers and game designers play Playrix games? And what do you think in general about Playrix?
Yes, we do.
Okay. And their opinion on the company? On the games?
We admire Playrix. We really do. Yeah.
So that's great. That's it? Any other questions? And if you have troubles asking it in English, I can help you. Okay? You will ask yourself or I have to translate? So here's the question. Have you ever thought about letting players make levels themselves?
Oh, that's a good question. We have, I believe, but there are certain, as I understand, I'm not sure how much I can talk about this. There are certain legal questions around it and that kind of thing. So it's not often that we really discuss it.
So you can talk a lot about it, but actually, yeah.
Yeah.
I have one more question.
Okay. No?
Thank you. I play all your games, as you can see, and I have an idea. I would like to ask you, what is the main idea of the Bubble Witch game? What is the most exciting in this game? How do you think is creative?
This game, Pet Rescue?
Yeah, Bubble Witch game, yeah.
Bubble Witch?
Yeah, I see the witch and there is a Bubble Witch game. It's another game of the king, because I know all of them, you know?
Yeah, so I love Bubble Witch, but that's because I used to work on a bubble shooter at my old company. So I used to play Bubble Witch as research and then got really addicted to it. But I love the characters and I love the home building in Bubble Witch Saga 3. I like having that level of personalization. So yeah.
This is the most exciting, right?
Yes, for me.
For you.
For me personally.
Okay. One more question. Where these mice come from?
Those mice are from a game called Alpha Betty.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, there is another question. Come. Okay.
Сколько получается готовых уровней в месяц?
And how many levels already in a month?
Are we making a month?
Yeah. In a month, how many levels do you?
We can make anywhere from 30 to 60, just depending on how busy we are with other tasks.
From 3 level designers in a month.
Как много итераций проходит до готового уровня? То есть и на какой итерации отказываются от идеи и делают заново?
how many iterations can a level on maximum come through? And is there an iteration where you can cancel a level?
So there's no maximum. I say that there's no like hard rule, but if we do it more than like 5 or 6 times, we might start to wonder maybe we should redo this level. No.
Thank you.